This is the nature of everything. Don't stay stuck.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nature of Everything, where we talk about all kind of stuff and look at it through coin or framework. And we're glad you're here. I'm Bo.
And I'm Clint, and I say we just jump right into it.
Okay, man. All right. So picture this: it's Tuesday afternoon, like 2:47 in the afternoon. You've
Mhm.
had your lunch, you've answered some emails, and you're sitting at your desk and you're just kind of off. You're not in a crisis, nothing's bad wrong. You're just kind of fogged out. And you read the same sentence three times. You pick up your phone, you put it down, you pick it up again. Like you get it.
I got it. Like that little voice in your head is just like going, come on, man, just push through. You got shit to do. Come on, let's do
Mm.
this."
Or worse, the voice was like, "What's wrong with you? Can't you just focus?"
Well, yeah, I mean that's when you like extra double down. You go for more coffee or another energy drink because that always helps. On just another one. Maybe you even open up the Nature of Everything book because you're supposed to be working on yourself, right? Like that's the key, and maybe that will just snap you out of it, right?
Yeah, but you know what? It doesn't.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And now you're
Mm-mm.
reading some personal development content while you're still all foggy and nothing's striking, nothing's landing. And now you
Yeah.
feel even worse because even self help isn't helping.
Like, welcome to the Tuesday afternoon fog. Like, that's what you're talking about.
And look, here's the thing, a lot of times in personal development, it doesn't really get talked about that much. That
Mhm.
moment, like the books, the podcasts, the gurus, like they're all aimed at the big stuff, the mountain you got to climb and the big breakthrough you got to have and the crisis and all that stuff.
That's true. Most of life really isn't the mountain that you're talking about. You're right. I
Uh-uh.
mean, it really is that Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday, any afternoon, any morning, and we think, "Well, what do you do in that particular moment? That scattered sort of, spaced out, tired moment." I mean, I think you're right. That matters a lot more than people realize.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. Like what your brain is actually doing in that moment. Because look, sometimes to not punish yourself and just to let it be, like the science is wild. Like we're going to bring in some big voices, Eckhart Tolle and Rick Rubin and some others. We're going to introduce something that maybe we call it like those smaller coin moments.
Yeah, because coin isn't just for the mountain. You're right. It's not just for crises. It's for Tuesdays and Taco Tuesdays at that, if that's where you are.
All the Tuesdays.
Every of the Tuesdays.
Before we get into the science, let's set this up a little bit because I think a lot of people, hear that there's like a personal development framework, like coin, and they think like it's just for the big stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of us hear stuff like confirm it, own it, be intentional. And we picture ourselves in some dramatic moment that, is super life changing. Like, I've confirmed that my marriage needs work, or I confirmed that my job's not going to be what I want it to be. So I'm owning that I'm just changing my career. Like, those are huge.
Right. The heavy hit.
And then look, those are real. And coin absolutely works for that. But we wrote an entire book about this being a lifelong practice, not just a crisis tool. And somewhere in there, we actually have a whole passage about intentional rest.
Yeah, we do. And I think a lot of people like skip past it because that just doesn't sound really sexy.
Hmm.
Not like the breakthrough stuff. But go pull out your book. It's in there. We literally wrote like you can enjoy the freedom to intentionally take a break from personal development.
And we said that it's during those pauses that the subconscious mind assimilates new knowledge. All right. So think about that. Like during these times, that's when you get to put all this stuff into play. That's when your brain processes it. And we said that in the book 2 years ago. Turns out we didn't know but half of it, right?
Typical, but what do you mean?
Well, I mean, the science on what happens during those pauses, I mean, it's way cooler than we even knew when we wrote the book. We had the intuition for what it is, and we had that feeling for it, but the research on what your brain is actually doing when you stop trying so damn hard, that's really the part that's mind blowing.
That's where I want to go. But first, let's define the moment because I think the confusion is like people hear like rest and they think vacation or they
Mm,
think sleep or
mhm.
they think like, some kind of burnout recovery or something.
Yeah, not exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, not at all. Because I mean, I think we're talking about Tuesday at 2:47 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
We're talking about when you're just foggy and you don't know why,
Mhm.
or when you've been reading the same sentence over and over again. It will not go into your head. You can go as far as journaling, but it just feels like you're performing. And
Mhm.
you're kind of like, why am I even doing this?
That's true. That's the moment. You're right. And we want to propose something that is, I would say, kind of radical. That moment is really a coin moment. Just probably not the kind you're used to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a smaller coin moment.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, confirm it. You're tired and scattered. Okay. Easy to name. Own it. Don't pretend that you're not. Like, you just named
It's
it.
simple
Like,
enough.
I think I'm tired and scattered. Yep. I'm tired and scattered. Like, so now be intentional. Here's the weird part. Like, being intentional might mean that you just choose to stop working on yourself for, I don't know, maybe the next hour or so, and really change the nature of that. Change the nature of that piece. That comes from the rest. Like, that comes from taking that moment, not from some huge effort point, but just taking a moment to rest.
But I think we should talk about why, like before, people go quitting their jobs. But like, you bring the science. Like, I felt like this was really interesting when we talked about it.
Indeed. So the baseline, the sort of the setup for this, for most of the history of neuroscience, like scientists have thought that when you weren't focused on a task, your brain was basically like in idle mode. Like when you're working on a problem, your brain is active, and then you stop working, your brain just quiets down, and that for the long time has been the assumption is that your brain just idles.
It makes sense. I think that's what mine does.
Well, I mean, it sounds right, but sorry, completely wrong.
Okay.
So, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, researchers doing like brain imaging started noticing stuff that was, outside of what they thought was going to take place. When they put people in like an MRI machine and told them to just chill out, just rest. Don't think about anything in particular, just chill out. There was this whole network of, like, regions in the brain that started completely lighting up, and it didn't darken and quiet down.
So I guess they found out that the brain is active like when you're not trying to make it do anything.
Yeah, it's a different kind of active, and they ended up calling it the default mode network, which sounds really nice and sciencey, which,
Can we get
you
an
know
IT guy right?
Exactly. But it does turn out that by default, your brain kicks into gear in a lot of ways when you're not focused on like the outside stimuli. Like when the outside world's not coming at you so much, then your brain actually has the opportunity to kick on and do some work otherwise. And so what they figured out is that this default mode is where a huge amount of your most important cognitive style work really happens in your brain. For instance, like your memory thing, like consolidating your memories and putting those, to where they make more sense. Self reflection, taking perspective on things, like even imagining the future, giving yourself the opportunity to like think of what is possible down the road. So what's cool about this like creative availability for this default mode is that, to me, like the coolest part is that it gives your brain the opportunity to make connections between unrelated pieces of information or unrelated ideas.
Well, and you're saying that that all happens when we're not trying.
Yeah, and actually, it happens when you really stop trying. That's what the really cool piece of this. And like I said, there's ton of research on it now because the stuff I'm talking about was late '90s and early 2000s. So there was some stuff published in 25, and this was huge. Like it was 2,400 people across 5 countries, and in the research they found that creativity can be reliably predicted by how dynamically your brain switches between focused, controlled thinking that you're putting a lot of effort in and this default mode that we're talking about.
The best thinkers aren't necessarily grinding harder. I mean, that's really an encourager to me.
No, I wouldn't say no, they're not grinding hard. It's like, they have the ability to switch between those better. They're able to, like, go into focus mode when they really need to, and when they don't, then they have the ability to just let go when they need to and go into that default mode. And it really is rhythm. This rhythm between these 2 modes that actually produces the best kind of thinking. And yeah, like to your point, not just full on grinding it out, but being able to hit that rhythm between the 2 modes.
This is fascinating to me, and I don't want to like toot my own horn, but like it kind of makes sense to me. And I think as a person in a creative field, like I do have to
Mhm.
balance that, and I do have to, turn it off and take a break, and all of that makes some sense to me. But like, let's make it practical. Like, what does it look like in real life in a non like creative business, maybe?
Like, best example is, being in the shower.
Yeah, everybody knows that. Good thoughts in the show.
Well, I mean, everybody does know this, and but, again, though, there's literally research, and hold on to it. It's called the shower effect. Like this is an actual thing where psychologists at the University of Virginia and the University of Minnesota, they studied why creative ideas show up in the shower. And I say in a shower, but on a walk or while you're driving or anything like that, because they figured out it's because those activities are what they call moderately engaging. So your conscious mind has enough to do, like, it stops like gripping and holding on to the problem. And when it does so, it lets your default mode kick in and it starts making the connections that you're missing because you're trying so hard.
I dig it. So you're
Mhm.
saying not in the shower, so jog, driving, mowing the yard, washing the dishes, all that kind of
Sure.
stuff where your body
Any.
is doing something that it's kind of used to doing, and your
Mhm.
mind has just enough to occupy that it can't obsess over some bigger problem.
Yeah, that really is the key. It's that literal, like, healthy distraction. Because again,
Ugh.
you're not zoned out. It's not like you're just, blitzed out of your brain. It is a distraction though. The activity is it's almost decoy in its own way. It gives your conscious mind something to engage with or to mess with so that your subconscious can actually, like, in the background, do what it does and it gets work done while you're not trying to focus so heavily on it.
Yeah, so like when we're stuck on something, the
Mhm.
maybe the worst thing we can do is sit at my desk or lay in the bed, and just stare at it harder, think about it harder. And
Sure.
maybe the best thing we can do is anything else,
Yeah,
like go for a
absolutely.
jog or take the dog for a walk or, go walk around in the yard. I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, and so it's not that plenty of people don't know this. Plenty of people recognize often because again, I think our brains tell us what we really need most often. And when we're just chewing on this problem all day long, so often I think our brains are telling us, "Hey, like get off, just walk away from it for a bit. Go take a walk around the block or whatever." And like, our brains are telling us that. And then so often we're looking at go, "No, no, I just gotta dig in, I gotta do this." But our brain
Uh-huh.
is often telling us, "Hey, switch off for just a sec. Let me do what I do. Just get out of the way." And so I think oftentimes our brain's telling us what the answer is.
I do believe that our subconscious brain will keep working on it
Sure.
if we do get up. And
Indeed.
it connects to something I think everybody can understand is like, sleep on it, right? If you got a big
Mhm.
problem, they'll say, well, you need to sleep on it. You go to bed with a problem and you wake up and maybe you have a little bit more clarity or it just doesn't feel so ominous.
Sure.
I think we can all understand the idea of, sleep on.
Well, I mean, you want some more science? I got
Yes,
some if you
love the
want some.
science.
So what you're actually talking about is what's known as the incubation effect. And this goes back to like the 1920s. Graham Wallace proposed that creative thinking happens in stages. So,
I knew this. I swear I feel like I knew this just
yeah, well,
practically.
check it out. Check it out. You've got preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. So the incubation part is where you stop working on the problem. It's not an empty stage. It's not a wasted moment. That this actual stage is where your unconscious mind, it's actually doing the work. And look, the effect of this, it's real. Here's the kicker. The research shows that incubation works best when you fill that time with a low demand activity, whether it's going for a walk or whatever, not a high demand activity. So if you're stuck on a creative problem, the worst thing you can do is stay on it and keep trying to grind harder. The best thing you actually can do, based on the research, is roll out to something that would be, I would say, something more routine, something that has that rhythm that you're used to, a walk. I don't do dishes, fold laundry, whatever it is. It's something that gives you that modicum of a distraction, but isn't taking your mind into focusing a completely different direction in a hard way. Something that gives you just enough to stop choking on the problem that you're dealing with.
You know, our parents were right when we would get bored, they'd say, "Go outside and play."
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, we have to wait till this time in life to where we can say our parents were right, because it
True.
doesn't feel good before now.
Alright, so that's one part of it, like the brain actually doing the work when we stop trying, but what's the other part?
The other piece, and this one, I think it's it's definitely it's more important for that Tuesday afternoon, 2:47 in the afternoon kind of piece that we're talking about. There's this theory. The theory is called the attention restoration theory, and it was developed by two researchers at the University of Michigan. And the core idea is that the kind of attention you use to get stuff done, like that real grind style of attention, focus, deliberate, like effort, like that kind, that's called directed attention, and it's limited. There's a finite amount of what that is. Yeah, you can deplete the store of your directed attention, and when it runs out, you don't just lose focus. Like, that's when you start feeling the frustrations and you get panicky and you get impulsive and you get pissy and cranky about it. And that's where you start making the bad decisions when you're running out of this directed attention. You're more likely to yell at your spouse or your significant other, or yell at your kids, or like be shitty to the people that count on you at work or whatever the case may be. That's when you're running out of that.
So what I hear is that when we're in that fog and we're cranky, that's not a character flaw.
No, but I mean, it's like we need a fuel gauge in our eyeballs to where like, or a battery indicator. It's like battery's low. We need something that's telling us that.
Alright, so what do I need to do about it?
The research actually shows that what restores the directed attention piece of this isn't rest in the sense of sleep. It's not like just checking out, but it's something that the research called soft fascination. These are the things that engage your attention effortlessly. All right. So it's not going to be another grinding style assault on your attention. These are the things that you can sort of be on autopilot for. I think there are really smart approaches to this. It can absolutely, if you're at work, it's not like you can just go outside and lay under the clouds and watch them. But which sucks because that's like what they're finding is like leaves rustling in the wind, like laying by a babbling brook, as it were, and listening to water flow and a creek fire. Just you need a babbling brook, is what I'm telling you. And if you don't have one, you should go get you one because these are the things that they actually found like these, they capture attention, but they don't demand anything from you. And so that's what actually lets your tank of directed attention, that's what allows that to really refill. Those are the ideal pieces.
Soft fascination, that's a fascinating word term, but, like, right, so, I mean, that implies that there's, like, a hard fascination. Yeah, I don't wanna get too lost in the vocab.
Yes, there are those things. So, like, the things that capture your attention effortlessly, like I just said, and like I said, we're joking about the babbling brook, but you think about if you're like oceanfront property, how perfect is that to, be able to just go out and sit and listen to the waves hit the shore? Like that is ideal because yeah, hard fascination actually is a term, and that's going to be stuff like things that we're really addicted to in our current society, stuff like video games and constant scrolling on our phones and big blow up style thrilling movies or loud sports events and that kind of stuff. Those are the hard fascination pieces that are not exactly what this is wanting you to look at.
Okay, so I think I'm starting to get it.
So, I
So
mean,
the
yeah,
like things that won't let you
go
go,
ahead.
like TikTok, or versus the clouds that would let you go.
Absolutely. So when you're hitting that wall on the Tuesday afternoon at 2:45 in the afternoon, like when you pick up your phone and start, hitting all the socials and you're actually not disengaging the way you're supposed to. That's not rest in the sense that you're actually engaging in hard fascination, which is exactly opposite of what you need to be doing. You're depleting more of the attention, like, gauge, like, more of that fuel, you're using more of it then instead of letting that, sort of build back up.
I have to be honest and say that I admit I think I do feel worse after doom scrolling. I definitely don't feel rested.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it's also important to note that, yeah, there's a reason that you feel worse after doing it, and it's not because you're a bad person and you're guilty, or there's no guilt or blame, like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's not that. It's actually the reason why you feel worse is because you're doing the opposite of what your brain actually needs for the moment.
All right, so the cure for the Tuesday afternoon fog is not more caffeine, and it's definitely not taking a break to scrolling your phone. It's
Mhm.
stepping outside and watching a tree.
I mean, literally, yeah. I mean, it actually is. Even if it's, just for a few minutes. Like the research shows that just looking through a window, like and if like looking through a window, finding the furthest horizon point that you can find and like just staring at that for just a moment, like it actually improves cognitive performance. Like
Wow.
especially if you have the ability to just go walking for 20 minutes in the park or like all of these things. No, if you can do those things, that measurably restores like substantial attention fuel. And I do think that this is important for us. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge, big production. It's not about that. You don't have I mean, not that you can't, but it's not like you gotta jump in the car and drive to Yellowstone and, and make a production out of I mean, if you can, that's perfect, but if you're, thousands of miles away, probably not feasible. So, how about just go stand on your back porch for 5 minutes and whether it's listen to birds or listen just to the wind blow, whatever it is, like those things, like those actually have true value.
And look, it actually does tie back to what we wrote in the book. The intentional pause from we were talking about personal development in the book. Like sometimes you need to take a break, let the seeds of change take some
Mhm.
root. And like you said, we were kind of thinking about it intuitively, but it's really interesting to hear that there's an actual psychological mechanism, a biological mechanism.
Absolutely. So, in order to like intentionally recover your directed attention, in order to recover that, your default mode, it needs to take over. Like your subconscious processes whatever you're working on, whatever you've been grinding on, you step away from that, and all of these things naturally come into play. You come back to the problem with a whole different brain. One, it was stuck there for a minute, but now that you've disengaged from that and you've allowed that fuel to recover, you come back to the problem with a whole new brain.
All right, so we've got science and scientists and very formal studies, and that's awesome. But you know what's really interesting is that a lot of other voices have been saying the same thing. We always talk about the idea of coin and the nature of everything. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. We're not saying anything new, but maybe we're just saying it differently. And this is exactly one of those things.
Absolutely. So, and I'm going to turn this over to you. I want you to start with Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle, like said, Look, who, by the way, I've been reluctant to kind of really push on this show because, I don't want it to sound too woo woo.
Well, you literally said in an earlier episode, "I don't want to be too Eckhart Tolle about it." Like, you said those words.
I did. I said that. But like, here's the funny thing, and this actually goes right to the point of the whole episode. Like, I read an Eckhart Tolle book a couple of years ago, like at this point, maybe 5 years ago. And the thing is that like I just thought like, oh, this is just way too much. It's too deep. It's too dense. I don't even know what this guy's saying. And I put it down. But what's weird is I picked it up a couple of years later. It magically made sense. I swear to you, like it landed in a way that it just didn't before.
Yeah, but maybe maybe your humble brain needed a couple of years to, sit back and process some Eckhart Tolle.
My humble brain needed 2 years of incubation for sure, which, I mean, come on. I mean, that's exactly what
Obviously,
we're
yeah.
talking about. I didn't grind through it.
Mhm.
I didn't force it. I just, I put it down and I lived my life for a while and I came back and it was different or maybe I was different.
Or maybe both.
And look, here's the thing, Eckhart Tolle, the basic argument is that compulsive thinking, the constant mental chatter, the endless self commentary, it's actually the source of our suffering. It's it pales in comparison to the events
Mhm.
in our life and thinking about them. The thinking about them is the problem. The quiet mind is how you get around them.
Right. Yeah, and if you squared that up with really what we've been talking about with the default mode and directed attention, like what he's describing is really the same thing that's been presented in all the research. I mean, he's using a different language, but it's all the same stuff.
Yeah, and so like Rick Rubin, he's another legendary music producer, and he wrote a book called The Creative Act, and a huge chunk of it is about the discipline of doing nothing. Maybe Jerry Seinfeld could get in on this.
Mhm.
I bet he talks about how great artists have to learn how to stop working because if they don't, their work becomes forced and just kind of mechanical.
Yeah, well, and I've read that, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically has called it the work of not working.
And there's a poet named Wendell Berry. One of my favorite lines is this: "The impeded stream is the one that sings," which kind of I think this whole episode could be about that.
But dude, say more about that then.
Okay, so a stream that has nothing in its way, no rocks, no tree limbs, it just runs. It's silent and efficient. But the stream that hits something, a rock, or it has to slow down or work around something, like that stream's the one that's the babbling brook that you were talking about, the one that makes the music. Look, the same, a life with no pauses, no obstacles, no rest, like that's nothing worth listening to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm gonna add one more because I think we all forget often that in Genesis, God rests on the seventh day. If God needs a break, like I say, if you've just spoken the whole universe into play, it's probably worthy of a rest. So I'm just saying, like, if rest is in the design at any level, at all levels, at that level, like maybe we can stop treating it like something like we have to somehow earn rest when I don't think we have to. Realistically, we can break it down in any scenario that you like. And scenario that we've already talked about. You're at your desk. It's 2:47. You're all spaced out and foggy in the brain. You can't focus. And what does a small coin moment look like? And I think it starts with C. Confirm it. I'm tired and scattered. Like, don't pretend otherwise. Just be in the moment to go, I'm tired and scattered.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you can own it because now you know it's not a character flaw. It's your brain sending you a message that it's depleted.
Sure. Absolutely. So be intentional. Close your laptop. Turn your monitor off for a bit. Stand up. Get away from your desk. Go walk down the hall or walk through the halls. Get outside. Like look around. Just don't take your phone. How about that? Don't take your phone. Leave your phone on the desk and take 5 minutes for yourself to go look at a tree, listen to birds, that's it.
I mean, it sounds crunchy and funny, but like
Yeah.
what we're learning is that it will change the nature of everything.
Mhm.
That you'll come back sharper. If that one thing that you were stuck on, maybe you're not stuck anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. But I mean, either way, you're not fighting your own biology.
Well, and you know what? Even another scenario. Maybe you are reading the Nature of Everything book for the 3rd time, the 8th time, like you're supposed to. We're all supposed to be reading the book all the time if you didn't know that. But we are. And guess what? Maybe you are reading it for another time and nothing seems to be landing. You can't focus on it. It's just not hitting.
So I mean, in that case, again, you confirm me. Hey, I'm just not in the right headspace to absorb this right now. That it takes some ownership. That's not failure. It's just information and forcing yourself to grind through when nothing's sticking. Like I think the science just taught us that that's worse than just stop.
Indeed. And so again, like your intentional piece of that, just put the book down. Like go do something else. Like go throw the ball with your kids or go fishing. Like watch something stupid on television. Like just let whatever's happening with those concepts, just like let that incubate for a week. And then when you come back to it, you'll see things that you probably weren't seeing before because your subconscious has had the opportunity to be working in the background this whole time. That's changing the nature of these pieces. That's changing the nature of everything. When you come back to it, like, and if you come back to it, it'll be because you've chosen to. It's because what you actually want to do, not because you're somehow strangely sort of like obligated to it. It's your choice.
Yeah, and look, that's where even these small moments, like they get kind of radical because we're kind of a personal development podcast telling you to put down your pencil. Put down your personal development practices on that Tuesday afternoon and just stop.
It does feel a bit contradictory.
Yeah, but except that it's not. I mean, it's actually the most consistent thing that you could do, because the whole point of coin is to be intentional. Because the whole point of coin is living intentionally, not like you're grinding it out, not that you're hustling. You don't have to do anything, not compulsive living, intentional. And intentional sometimes means you stop.
True. Completely.
And something else I wanted to say that I think is kind of important about personal development. I guess I'm just kind of, beating the hammer on that. But like it's that not everything has to be ominous and deep.
Mm. Hmm. Yep.
Like I mean, like it's like life isn't constant interrogation. You don't have to examine every interaction. You don't have to extract a lesson from every coffee that you have. Like sometimes, like every Tuesday afternoon is a growth opportunity.
Yeah, and to your point, because here's what happens if you do. If you start performing like self-work instead of actually living, like, again, you're eating lunch, but you're not tasting it. It starts to burn life out of life because you're analyzing whether you're eating mindfully enough and, let's not get there. Like, you're talking to a friend, but you're not hearing them because I mean, and maybe you're not because you're running the conversation through your framework and you're trying to over framework everything. Like, you're on vacation but you're journaling about whether the vacation is aligned with your authentic self. Like that is like none of that is the direction we're trying to head in at all.
Yeah, and look, at some point you'd have to ask, like, what is all this self-work for if it's not
Yeah.
to live a life where you actually taste the food and hear your friend and enjoy your vacation? What's the point?
Again, yes, to your point, like all of this is to help like better and serve your life. Not, certainly not the framework is not to replace your life.
Some afternoons, they're just afternoons, and some
Sure.
jokes just are funny or they're just not funny, and some meals are just tasty, and that's not the failure of mindfulness.
Well, I mean, to that point, like, good. Like, a meal is just good, and maybe that is mindfulness.
Yeah, I mean, being fully present for the dumb joke on your back porch on a Tuesday afternoon is the whole entire point of life, and it's the whole entire point of the deep work. Like if you can't get there, the deep work isn't working.
That completely. And I think we need to say this out loud. Like, you are allowed to not be working on yourself sometimes. Like, it's perfectly okay. You are allowed to just simply be, not because you've earned it or because you've done enough deep work that you somehow deserve it. Like,
That's my
may
favorite.
I mean, like, even if you wanna feel that way, that's fine, but just being human is really plenty, and the constant self-improvement, like, treadmill, it can become its own way of avoiding the life that you're trying to work so hard to improve, so
Mm.
don't get out of bounds with it.
Yeah, I mean, that really is it,
Mhm,
So, one experiment that we should all do is to just catch ourselves in one of those moments, those smaller moments where you're tired and you're foggy and you're scattered, you're overthinking. Don't feel guilty about it.
mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because it's gonna happen. Like, it's absolutely can confirm will happen. So, like, try something different. Instead of pushing through this, instead of, like, just opening another tab on your self-help journey to nothingness, like, just don't scroll on your phone. Like, do something that does actually restore some of this fuel. Get up, walk around, head to the window, just like in a guiltless way, take a few minutes. No phone, no podcast, no book, just soft fascination is that's the term.
Do not come and listen to this podcast no matter what. You know, but seriously, don't make it a thing. Like just notice
Don't.
it.
And look, if you're listening right now to this and you're thinking, well, I mean, that sounds nice, but you know what? I don't have time for that. Well,
Yeah, I
you
mean
know
that's the
what?
person that needs it most.
That is absolutely the person who needs it the most, for sure.
Yeah, and remember the fog, it's not a personal flaw and it's not a discipline problem.
Mm,
It's
mm.
just your brain doing what your brain does. The most intentional move that you can make is to just let it. Let
Sure.
them.
Yeah, thank you, Mel Robbins. That's right. So again, your brain, it's not broken.
My brain is not broken. Thank you, Clint.
But I was look, the work is real. The heavy coin moments, the big confirmations, and like the hard parts of ownership and that intentionality piece that is uncomfortable, like all of that's real. I mean, it and it does have gravity, and we're not backing off of any of that. We're not trying to avoid any of that either.
The rest is also real.
For sure. Indeed.
And those smaller moments, like they kind of have the same practice. It's the same tool. It's just maybe a different scale or different time.
Indeed. So again, the framework that is coined, it's not just for the mountaintop, reach. It's for the Tuesdays as well. It just is.
So look, if you're hearing this and you're going like, okay, I get permission to zone out on a Tuesday, great.
Mhm.
Share it with somebody
Mhm.
else. They might need to tune out too. They might be running on fumes and feeling guilty.
And look, also, if you haven't picked up the book yet, go to thenatureofeverything.com and find the chapter on intentional rest. And it starts on I don't remember the page. Page?
I don't know. It's in there though.
It's definitely in there. Go find it.
Right. Look, everybody, look, rest well, support yourself and support others. And don't forget, not everything has to be ominous and deep.
You're right. Some days jokes are just jokes, meals are just meals, and Tuesdays are certainly just Tuesdays.
Which is funny because that's when we'll talk to you again.
Before you go, just know it's time. Time to connect. Time to change the nature of everything. Find us at thenatureofeverything.com and don't stay stuck.